lesson, I'm going to show you everything you need to know about Octane camera. So let's dive right in. First, I'm going to delete this camera we have in our previous scene, and I want to just create a new camera. Now I can go to my standard here and select my Octane interface, and under my object I can just select my Octane camera and check this to make sure it's currently active. So I'm going to render this, and yeah, so we have this really nice render going on. So I'm going to click on the Octane camera tag and I want to start messing with these settings. Now, one thing you need to know is whenever you are using an Octane camera, right, basically it's just a regular cinema 4D camera with an Octane tag. But then if you try and make changes to this camera settings by clicking on this and trying to change this here, all of this is not going to have effect in Octane because Octane won't recognize any of this, right? So you want to make sure whatever settings you are doing, you are clicking on this and then you are messing up with these tag settings right here, because this tag settings here is what's going to show up in the Octane render view. Alright, so when I click on this Octane tag, I want to go to my thin lens right here, and I can uncheck this right now, and I can hold down my control and I can press on my middle mouse button to click on this right here. Now what that is going to get this focal depth, and if you begin to increase our aperture, we get this really nice depth of field going on. So I might want to bump this a lot. So if I make it about 12, now it's going to affect. Now if I make this 12, now I'm getting that really nice depth of field, but I might want to crank up this value some more, say 24, and now we have that really nice depth of field, right? So I want to hold down control, maybe click on this area here, and you can see now that this area here is sharp while there is a depth of field going on here. So I can move this even, I can increase this value more, and now we have that really nice depth of field going on right there. So the next option will be the camera imager. Now if I click on this camera imager right here, we have the denoiser, and when you check on this denoiser, basically just denoises your image for you, and you can begin to increase the samples to get a better result. Alright, so the next option here is the exposure, and basically what it does is to increase or reduce the exposure of your image. Currently now if I increase it, it is too much, so it's overexposed, and if I drop it too down, it is underexposed, right? So I just want to give it at a very good value. Now the next one I want to touch on is the gamma right here. So if you increase the gamma, it's also going to increase like the overall brightness, and if you drop this down, it's going to give it that really nice dark contrasty feel, right? So that's what the gamma does, right? Right, so now next thing I want to touch on is the alt pixel remover, right? And basically what it does is allows you to remove fireflies, right? And what I mean by fireflies is artifact in our render, right? So if you're rendering some really complex scenes and there are a lot of glass or glossy surfaces going on, you get these artifacts going on, like little artifacts, right? So that's what is referred to as fireflies. So with the alt pixel remover, when you drop this down, you're able to take away some of those fireflies going on in your scene. Now the next one is the post-processing, and basically this just has some really nice post-processing effect on your render. Now I click on this to enable it, and I can begin to increase things like the boom power, and as I increase the boom power, you can see that this material here that has emission begins to have that boom power we are adding. Now I can increase the glare, and this is going to create some really nice glares going on right there. This is going to increase the amount of the glare, and so we see the results we're getting. Now this is going to change the angle of the glare as well, and this is going to blur out the glare. Now basically all of these things are pretty much explanatory, and you can always play with these settings during your free time. Now to set up your render, you want to go to this render settings right here, and you want to change your rendering engine from standard to Octane. Now if you go to your Octane render here, you have the option to go to your override camera settings and click on this. So you're going to override all these settings that you have here, right? But I usually don't even click this because right from the beginning of my project I make sure everything was set right here, so I really don't need to come here to override any of these settings So I'm just going to check that off. Alright, so in the main tab, what I want to check is the use denoise beauty pass. And basically what this does is to make sure that you are rendering out that denoiser in this camera right here. So if you've gone to your camera and the camera imager, and you've enabled this camera imager and add a denoiser right here, to see this result in the final render, you want to make sure this is checked right here. And also if you want to, so you want to make sure this is checked right here. Another thing I do sometimes when I'm doing breakdowns is to click on my clear rendering and I choose a gray color. So basically this is going to apply like a universal gray color on all your objects in Cinema 4D. So after doing that, the next thing will be to just go to my save here. I want to select my format for saving. I want to select the depth, and I just want to click on right here. I'm just going to open up my browser and I can type in a name and folder where I want to save this. So the next thing I want to touch on is the alpha channel right here. So let's say you're rendering an image and then you don't have any background right here and you want it to render out an alpha channel as well. You want to make sure this is checked on, right? But you also want to make sure that you want to go to your Octane settings and you want to click on alpha channel right here. So that's going to enable this alpha channel here. The next thing will be to go to your output and you want to select the width and the height. You want to make sure that this is set to 72, and you can specify the frame range you want, or you can always select all frames. Alright, so this option is going to render all your frames, and you can click on the current frame, which is going to render the current frame your time head is sitting on right here. So that's that about your render setup. So I'll see you guys in the next lesson.